Hey everyone, welcome back. The Minecraft world's loaded in, the fire's crackling, and I've got another stack of unhinged Reddit stories lined up for you tonight. We're diving into one that still makes my jaw drop. Honestly, some people treat lawsuits like monopoly money. The audacity is breathtaking. Imagine someone actually suing you, like legally, for sitting on their furniture. That's where this chaos starts. But trust me, that's not even the most outrageous part. Because what comes next? It's poetic justice at its finest. She thought she was in control, but she basically wrote the script for her own downfall. And the twist waiting at the end? Let's just say she never saw it coming. So let's jump in and start with a story where a ridiculous lawsuit spirals into a relationship meltdown you won't believe. So, my girlfriend and I get invited to a board game night at her friend Erica's house. Just a casual Friday thing. I'd met Erica once or twice before, but this was our first time really hanging out. The vibe was chill, people brought snacks, someone made mulled wine, and we were all just setting up code names on the coffee table when it happened. I sat down on her couch, and I swear to you, the moment my weight hit the cushion, Erica's whole body stiffened like I'd just kicked her dog. She snapped her head around, full on laser vision, and went, that's not for sitting. I thought she was joking. Like, decorative pillows? Sure. But decorative furniture? Apparently, yes. She launched into this weird monologue about how the couch was vintage mid-century Danish and part of the room's visual language. I was already halfway up off the thing like it was radioactive, but she was pacing now, genuinely upset, as if I had desecrated a shrine. And mind you, this was not roped off like a museum piece. It was right there in the middle of the living room, flanked by coasters, a throw blanket, and a stack of home and garden magazines. It looked like a couch. It quacked like a couch. So I sat. Everyone else kind of side-eyed each other, doing that awkward smile laugh thing people do when something weird happens, and no one wants to be the first to say it's weird. I apologized, sincerely even, and moved to a folding chair. Erica muttered something about boundaries and then dropped it. Or so I thought. The night moved on. Games were played, drinks were had, and I honestly forgot about the couch debacle until 3 weeks later. I'm checking my mail one afternoon and find this ominous envelope. No return address, just my full legal name typed across the front. Inside, a small claims court notice. Erica was suing me for $1,200 for, and I quote, emotional distress and irreversible aesthetic damage to her couch. I had to read it 3 times. There was even an attached photo, a zoomed-in shot of what looked like maybe a faint watermark. She claimed I'd placed my drink, a canned soda, on the arm of the couch and it left a ring, which I didn't for the record. I used a coaster. She had them right there. But even if I hadn't, what kind of villain origin story is someone slightly dampened the armrest of my vintage Danish chaise lounge? At this point, I'm half horrified, half dying laughing. I showed it to my girlfriend, who looked mortified but not shocked. Apparently, Erica has a history of being extra when it comes to her stuff, like the time she made someone Venmo her $4 for spilling trail mix on her rug. So, yeah, this wasn't entirely out of character. But still, court, I filed a response denying the claim, thinking it would get thrown out before it even hit a docket. Nope. The court date was set, so now I'm prepping for this absurd trial. I gathered text messages from the night, asked a couple friends who were there if they remembered me using a coaster. They did. My girlfriend even found a picture she took of the game board that night, where you can literally see my soda on the table next to a coaster. We show up in court and Erica arrives in what can only be described as courtroom cosplay. Power suit, binder full of laminated evidence. It looked like a Pinterest board exploded in there. She had Exhibit A through F, all printouts of her couch in varying degrees of lighting. The judge, bless him, clearly clocked the ridiculousness of the situation within 30 seconds. He raised an eyebrow and asked her to explain the damage. Erica went on a full TED talk about the sanctity of mid-century furniture and how my negligent behavior had caused her weeks of anxiety and a $1,200 drop in her property's ambiance. Not value, ambiance. Then she pulls out this printed Yelp review of her apartment from some guy she briefly rented to on Airbnb once, like that was part of her real estate portfolio. The judge turns to me. I show him the photo of the coaster. I explain that I never put the drink on her couch, and that even if I had, there was no actual damage. just a faint smudge that could probably be wiped off with a damp cloth. He looks back at Erica and asks plainly, "Is the couch structurally damaged?" She hesitates, then mutters, "Not structurally, no." "Is the upholstery torn, burned, or permanently stained?" Long pause. "No." And then, my favorite line of the whole day, the judge says, "So we're here. Because someone sat on a couch?" She starts tearing up, saying something about feeling violated in her own home and how boundaries are important, which, fair. But suing someone? Over sitting? The judge dismissed the case on the spot. He didn't even let it go to mediation. He just looked at her like she'd tried to sue the weather and said, "Case dismissed. Please do not misuse court time like this again." We walked out of the courtroom in silence. Erica looked like she'd just been personally wronged by the Constitution. My girlfriend didn't say a word on the ride home, just shook her head the whole time. Honestly, I don't even feel bad. That couch wasn't rare. I found a nearly identical one on Craigslist that night for $300. The best part? A week later, Erica posted a for sale listing of the exact same couch on Facebook Marketplace, listed as gently used. No mention of emotional trauma or cursed soda rings. You almost have to admire the audacity. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Hit subscribe. Trust me, it only gets worse from here. But if you thought being sued over sitting was wild, wait till you hear who called the cops over a baby name. When we found out I was pregnant, we went through the usual naming chaos most couples do. Baby name apps, late night debates, vetoing anything that reminded us of an ex or a terrible former boss. The usual. But one name kept coming up that we both loved. Luca. Short, sweet, not overly trendy. It felt right. What we didn't expect was for that name to become the catalyst for an all-out meltdown from my husband's ex-wife. Now, to be clear, there's no bad blood between me and her, at least not on my end. We've been civil for the sake of the kids. She and my husband co-parent their son together, and for the most part, it's been functional, if not exactly warm. Until Luca. We just had the baby a few weeks earlier. Exhausted, but happy. One morning, I posted a simple photo on Facebook, nothing dramatic. Just our daughter sleeping in a little knit hat, with the caption, "Welcome to the world, Luca Yellowheart." That was it. That was the trigger. Not even 10 minutes later, I get a comment from the ex. Publicly, mind you. That just says, "Wow, classy, I ignored it. Figured it was just a passive-aggressive jab and moved on." But then she followed it up with a full-on rant in my DMs. Apparently Luca's the name of her dog. Her 12-year-old, one-eyed Shih Tzu. Now I had no idea what her dog's name was. I've never met it. My husband didn't remember either. Apparently she got the dog after the divorce. But now she was absolutely convinced we named our baby after her pet, as some kind of twisted power move. Her message was this whole paragraph accusing us of trying to overwrite her family, and that naming our baby Luca was a sign of disrespect. I wish I was exaggerating when I say she called it identity theft of the soul. Yeah, of the soul. We didn't respond. What were we supposed to say? "Sorry your dog has a cute name too?" It was ridiculous, but that wasn't even the worst part. The next day, she showed up at our house. I was breastfeeding on the couch, half asleep and still recovering from a C-section, when the doorbell rang. My husband answered it, and there she was, standing on the porch with printed screenshots of the Facebook post. I'm not kidding. She'd highlighted the baby's name like it was a court exhibit. She started yelling right there on the doorstep, not even trying to be subtle. "How dare you name your child after my dog?" She kept saying it was a targeted attack and that we were erasing her family legacy. Family legacy of a dog. My husband told her she needed to leave. She refused. Kept repeating, "You don't get to overwrite my story," like she was delivering a monologue in a low-budget soap opera. Then she did the unthinkable. She pulled out her phone and called the cops, right in front of us, on speaker. She told them she was being harassed and gaslit by her ex-husband and his new wife, and that we were emotionally abusing her by appropriating personal identifiers. I genuinely didn't even know what that meant. It sounded like something she pulled off a blog about psychic boundaries. The 911 operator must have been confused because she kept repeating the part about the dog. They named their child after my dog, and I feel endangered in my own identity. She said it like we'd stolen her passport. My husband just closed the door at that point. We figured she'd cool off and leave once she realized how absurd it sounded. But no. About 15 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up. Two officers got out and we braced ourselves for an awkward conversation. They knocked. My husband opened the door again, and I'll never forget the look on their faces as he explained the situation. She's upset because we named our daughter Luca. Apparently, that's the same name as her dog. There was a long pause. One of the officers looked down at his notepad, then back up and asked, "Is that illegal?" My husband just blinked. "No, we just like the name." The other officer glanced toward the street where the ex was still pacing dramatically on the sidewalk, like she was waiting for her cue. He nodded slowly, clearly trying not to laugh, and said, "All right, yeah. We're gonna go have a quick chat with her." They walked over and we just watched through the window as she launched into her speech again, waving her papers, pointing at the house, clearly trying to play the victim. At one point, she even held up a picture of her dog like it was physical evidence. And then it happened. One of the officers visibly snorted. Not even a subtle chuckle, a full involuntary laugh. He put his hand over his mouth and turned away like he was trying to cough, but it was too late. She looked absolutely betrayed, like this was her Oscar moment, and they were laughing during her acceptance speech. Eventually, they managed to calm her down and gently suggest she seek resolution through other means. I'm assuming that's cop speak for, "You need a therapist, not the police." They came back to our door briefly and apologized for the inconvenience. One of them even said, "Congratulations on the new baby, by the way." Luca's a beautiful name, and he gave me this little wink that said everything he couldn't say on duty. As they drove off, we just stood there in silence for a second. Then my husband looked at me and said, "Should we rename the dog?" I lost it. And the best part? A few days later, she sent a follow-up email, a formal request that we legally change our daughter's name. She cited spiritual infringement. We didn't respond. Imagine being this confidently wrong. Anyway, Luca's doing great. She just learned how to smile, and I swear, every time she does, I imagine that dog somewhere growling softly in psychic distress. Speaking of names, let me introduce you to a guy whose roommate kept blaming everything on someone named Kyle. Except Kyle doesn't exist. When I first moved into that apartment, I thought I hit the roommate lottery. Rent was cheap, the building wasn't falling apart, and my roommate Ryan seemed normal enough. He worked in IT, played guitar badly in the evenings, and had this dry sense of humor that made even takeout arguments feel like sitcom banter. We weren't best friends, but we got along. The only weird thing, he always talked about this guy named Kyle. At first, I thought Kyle was just a mutual friend or maybe a cousin. Ryan dropped his name casually. "Oh, Kyle picked up that Amazon package," or "Kyle borrowed my charger," or "Kyle's got it covered when rent or utilities came up." Totally normal, right? It started small. Like when our first internet bill showed up, Ryan said, "Oh, don't worry, Kyle's sending in his half." He's cool like that, and I didn't question it. I figured Kyle was helping out, or maybe they split it somehow. Again, cousins or whatever. Not my business, but over time I noticed Kyle never actually showed up. I never saw him, not once. Never heard his voice. No texts, no group chats. Just Ryan saying, "Oh, Kyle handled it." He supposedly lived close by. Sometimes Ryan said he was crashing with Kyle. Other times he'd say Kyle was out of town. I'd ask if Kyle wanted to come to game night or help with furniture or literally anything social, and Ryan always had some vague excuse. "Kyle's with his girlfriend. He's swamped at work." Not really his thing. It wasn't just rent. It was everything. The water bill. Kyle's sending me money later. The electric? Oh yeah, Kyle already took care of that. The new frying pan that mysteriously disappeared? Kyle needed one. I said he could borrow it. For weeks, I just assumed Kyle was some elusive side character in Ryan's life. But then came the breaking point. One day, the gas company leaves a notice on our door. Apparently, our payment never went through, and we're 2 months overdue. I bring it up to Ryan, and like clockwork, he says, "Oh, that's weird. Kyle told me he paid it." I ask, "Did he send you a screenshot or anything?" Ryan stammers, "No, but he said he did it." I trust him. That was the first real red flag. I mean, sure, trusting your cousin is one thing, but we're literally about to get shut off. So I say, "Okay, can you just text Kyle and double check?" And he just kind of shrugs, says, "Kyle's phone's messed up right now. I'll talk to him tomorrow." That's when everything unraveled. I told Ryan I needed Kyle's info, like actual contact info, because I was done playing middleman. If Kyle was covering bills, I wanted transparency. Ryan got cagey, said he'd rather not involve me because Kyle's been going through stuff. I pushed harder, told him the utilities were in my name and I wasn't about to get burned because his mysterious cousin couldn't hit pay now on a screen. And finally, I kid you not, he says, okay. I'll have Kyle email you the next day. I get this email from a Gmail account with a name like Kyle.T.Rogers9203 and a subject line that literally just says money stuff. Inside, a 2-sentence message. Hey man, sorry for the mix-up. I sent Ryan the money. Should be all good now. No signature, no receipts, nothing. So I reply asking for proof of payment, just something showing the transaction. And the response? Dead silence. I checked the email header. It was brand new, no linked social accounts, no digital footprint, and the weirdest part, the writing style was identical to Ryan's. Same punctuation, same slang, and I just knew. I confronted Ryan that night. He tried to play dumb at first. Maybe Kyle's just bad at communication. But I laid it all out. The email, the unpaid bills, the total lack of any Kyle in the real world. I told him I'd been running a search through social media. Even checked public records. Nothing. And then came the breakdown. He sat down on the kitchen floor and just crumbled. I've never seen someone deflate like that. He admitted everything. There was no Kyle. There never had been. He made him up. Not just with me, with everyone. His parents thought Kyle was his co-worker. His ex-girlfriend thought Kyle was his cousin. His last roommate, who apparently moved out after a similar situation, had also been ghosted by the ghost of Kyle. He said it started in college. Whenever he messed something up or forgot something, he'd blame Kyle. Oh, Kyle borrowed my charger and didn't return it. Kyle forgot to drop off that package. People believed him. It became this reflex, and eventually it spiraled. Kyle was no longer just an excuse. He was a full-on alter ego. Ryan needed Kyle to exist, because if Kyle was real, Ryan didn't have to admit he was just failing. It was like watching someone explain their imaginary friend as an adult, with overdue bills in their lap. You ever feel both angry and bad for someone at the same time? Because that's exactly where I was. On one hand, I wanted to scream. I'd covered hundreds of dollars thinking someone else was splitting things. I had warning notices with my name on them. On the other hand, Ryan looked like a kicked puppy who just realized he bit the wrong hand. I told him it had to stop. Either he got his act together, or I was moving out. To his credit, he didn't argue. He nodded, apologized genuinely. And the next morning, Kyle was dead. Not dead, but Ryan deleted the email account, stopped mentioning him, paid back what he owed, even started seeing a therapist. And yeah, things were awkward for a while. Silence during breakfast. That whole post-live fog. But eventually it got better. We're still not close, but now we're honest. The funny part? Months later, I get a random Amazon package addressed to Kyle Rogers. Just a phone charger and a note that said, "Sorry I ghosted you." It had Ryan's handwriting. You almost have to admire the commitment. You think that's unhinged? Let me tell you about a woman who tried to fake a pregnancy for 3 months. We'd only been dating for about 2 months when she told me she was pregnant. I remember the exact moment. She sat me down on a couch, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We're going to be parents." No lead up, no nervous laughter. Just boom, baby bomb. I won't lie. I panicked a little. We weren't serious yet. No talks of the future, no plans to move in, but she seemed so calm about it. She said she'd already taken a few tests and was 100% sure. Said she wanted to keep it, but didn't expect anything from me unless I was ready. It was manipulative in hindsight, but at the time, I was floored by how mature she seemed. And I told myself, maybe this is just life throwing a curveball. Maybe I needed to step up. The next few weeks were a blur of morning sickness, sudden cravings, mood swings, and her texting me photos of random baby items with hearts. She even sent me a link to a baby name generator app and told me to start thinking about our future. And then came the Instagram post, a mirror selfie, her in a hoodie, hand on her barely there stomach. Caption, 12 weeks today, yas little bean, yas mummy tobe, blessed. It got hundreds of likes, way more engagement than her usual stuff. People flooded the comments with congratulations. She basked in it like it was sunlight. I asked if she wanted to go to a doctor's appointment together, and she said she preferred to go alone, that she felt more relaxed that way. Fair, I guess, but still weird. She said she'd update me after each visit. Her updates were always vague though. Heartbeat is strong, or doc says everything's on track. That kind of thing. But that wasn't even the weirdest part. She started building a baby registry, publicly, on multiple platforms. I found one on Amazon, another on Target, and one on some boutique baby site with $80 onesies and $300 diaper bags. When I asked her about it, she said it was just for friends and family. Said she wasn't expecting me to buy anything. Yet. Then came the bump pics. She started posting them once a week, always wearing loose clothing, always from a high angle. But the bump was barely there, and according to her timeline, she was supposedly 20 weeks along. I'm no expert, but something wasn't adding up. Her friends noticed too. One of them, let's call her Tasha, pulled me aside at a small gathering and asked, "Hey, has she actually shown you, proof?" I said I hadn't seen an ultrasound or gone to any appointments, but I trusted her. Tasha looked skeptical and said, "I don't want to start anything, but the math's not mathing, and she keeps changing when she says she's due." That's when I started looking back at her texts, her posts, and realizing the weeks didn't line up. One day she said she was 16 weeks. 2 days later she posted officially halfway there. Like, what? And then came the baby shower. She insisted on throwing it herself, said she didn't want to burden anyone with the planning. I offered to help, but she said no, she had it under control. She booked a venue, this Instagrammable little studio space with fake cherry blossom trees and neon signs that said baby love, sent out digital invites, made a big deal about it online, even posted a teaser about wearing a maternity gown and doing a bump reveal for everyone. The day arrives, I walk in, and immediately something feels off. No registry display, no gifts, no diaper cake, no ultrasound photos, just a photo booth corner, cupcakes, and a table of champagne and mocktails, and her, standing in the middle of it all, wearing a loose maxi dress, grinning ear to ear. No bump, none, not even the illusion of one. You couldn't even argue she was carrying small. She looked the same as she did 2 months ago, maybe even thinner. People were whispering. One of her aunts was visibly confused. Her cousin looked like she wanted to teleport out of the building. And then, as if on cue, someone asked, "Can we feel the baby kick?" Her face dropped. She paused, laughed awkwardly, and said, "Oh no, I'm just feeling super sensitive today. Doctor said not to touch the belly too much." And that's when everything fell apart. Tasha, bless her, wasn't having it. She walked right up and said, "So where's the bump? Where's the ultrasound pics? Where's literally anything that proves you're pregnant?" Dead silence. My girlfriend, or I guess ex now, turned bright red, stammered something about not needing to prove anything to anyone, then started fake crying and ran to the bathroom. The guests just stood there, blinking. One guy muttered, "This feels like a Netflix documentary waiting to happen." And honestly, he wasn't wrong. I followed her to the bathroom, knocked gently, and asked if we could talk. She didn't answer. 10 minutes later, she slipped out the back and left her own baby shower. She didn't come home that night. I texted, I called, nothing. Finally, 2 days later, she sent a massive paragraph about how I'd humiliated her in front of everyone and ruined the most special moment of her life. And then came the kicker. I was going to tell you the truth after the party. I just wanted to feel special for a little longer. She admitted it. The whole thing was fake. She said she thought it would bring us closer, that it started as a joke, telling a few friends she might be pregnant. And then the attention felt so good, she couldn't stop. She said she loved how people treated her, how they looked at her like she was important. She also admitted she never expected it to get this far, but once the baby shower was announced, she felt trapped. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I packed up my stuff, left her apartment, and blocked her on everything. A few mutual friends told me she posted a long, dramatic apology on her story, something about being misunderstood and going through things. And then she pivoted to healing content and started posting yoga reels with captions like, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. I genuinely thought this couldn't get worse." I was wrong, because last I heard, She's now selling pregnancy manifestation crystals on Etsy. Speaking of fake, next up, a fake funeral. Yeah, you read that right. It started with a mass email from HR on a Monday morning. Subject line, with heavy hearts. Inside was one of those carefully worded, almost poetic messages that corporate loves to use. It is with deep sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved colleague, Janine. They said she passed peacefully over the weekend. Included a short bio, some flattering words about her dedication and warmth, and even a GoFundMe link to help with funeral costs. People were stunned. Janine wasn't exactly popular. She mostly kept to herself, worked remotely half the time. But she'd been with the company for years. Accounting, reliable, quiet, just there. I think that's why the whole thing hit so hard. One of those people you never really notice until they're suddenly gone. The GoFundMe raised almost $9,000 in 2 days. Co-workers were donating, commenting heartfelt messages, sharing stories about emails she sent them during tax season. Someone made a slideshow. IT put together a digital memory wall. Even the CEO sent out a personal message about the fragility of life. It was surreal. A few people mentioned how odd it was that there was no memorial, no funeral date, no obituary link in a local paper. Just the GoFundMe and the email. But grief fogs everything, and no one wanted to seem insensitive by asking too many questions. Then came the breaking point. 3 weeks after her death, a guy from our department, let's call him Mark, goes to Waffle House, just a normal lunch break. He's halfway through his hash browns when he glances up and sees Janine, sitting at the counter, alive, eating pancakes, in yoga pants and sunglasses, like she was avoiding being recognized. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. He literally texted me a photo with no caption, just, "Am I losing my mind?" It was her. Same hair, same side part, same frumpy tote bag she always brought to the office. Mark approached her, quietly, just Janine, to see if she'd respond. She looked up, made eye contact, and ran. Left her food, her receipt, the whole table, and just ran out of the Waffle House. We didn't know what to do. Mark called HR on the spot, and here's where it gets absurd. HR pulls him into a Zoom call and tells him to drop it. Says they're looking into it internally, and that it might be a case of mistaken identity. Meanwhile, half our office is passing around the Waffle House picture, like it's a Bigfoot sighting. Then someone dug deeper. Turns out the GoFundMe was created by an account under the name JN Healer. No last name, no verified link to a funeral home. The funds had already been withdrawn, and just like that, everything unraveled. HR launched an investigation. We weren't given details, but a week later, they sent out another company-wide email. We have recently discovered a fraudulent incident involving one of our employees. This matter has been handled accordingly, and the employee in question is no longer with the company. No name, no apology, no refunds for the people who donated. But it didn't stop there. Janine, the woman who faked her death, started reaching out to people. I got a message on LinkedIn. No greeting, no intro. Just, "Hey, I was wondering if you'd be willing to provide a reference for me. I'm exploring new opportunities. I wish I was joking." Others got similar messages. One coworker responded asking, "Didn't you die?" And Janine replied, and I quote, "It was more of a spiritual death than a physical one." She claimed she'd needed a deep reset, that her old life was suffocating her, that she'd let go of her corporate self to be reborn. She also said HR had no right to terminate her because she never technically violated policy. Apparently, lying about your death isn't explicitly in the handbook. She even tried to get her job back, sent an email to the department head with a whole manifesto about reclaiming her narrative and how she was grateful for the learning experience. Needless to say, it didn't work. The wildest part? She kept the GoFundMe money, all $9,000 of it. When people started asking about refunds, she posted some blurry screenshots of candles and crystals on Instagram with captions like "Healing isn't linear." One guy commented, "You literally faked your funeral." She replied, "That's your interpretation. I don't even know how to process that." You almost have to admire the commitment to the bit. Last I heard, she's offering online workshops called Death of Self, Rebirth Through Disconnection. I checked the site. It's $250 for a weekend Zoom retreat. she's got a wait list. Imagine faking your death and turning it into a business model. Let's tone it down with a wholesome story about friendship. Oh wait, just kidding. He ruined his wedding. I never thought a two-word title could blow up a wedding, but here we are. It started when my fiancé, Jake, picked his best man. Simple decision, right? He chose his childhood best friend, Adam. They'd known each other since they were 6, survived middle school braces, high school breakups, and one truly awful spring break trip to Daytona Beach. So yeah, Adam was the obvious choice. Enter Tyler, Jake's stepbrother. Now to give you some background, Tyler and Jake didn't grow up together. Tyler came into Jake's life when they were both already teenagers, and while they were civil, they were never close. Jake always described him as the kind of guy who treats board games like psychological warfare. You know the type. Anyway, Jake tells the family that Adam's going to be his best man, and Tyler loses it. At first it was subtle, snarky comments at dinner. Oh, I guess being family doesn't mean anything anymore. And, hope Adam remembers your Starbucks order in the nursing home. We laughed it off, thought he was being dramatic for attention. But then he starts texting Jake paragraphs. I'm talking full-on emotional manifestos about loyalty and respect, and how the best man is more than a title. It's a statement. Jake tried to be diplomatic. He offered Tyler a groomsman spot, said he still wanted him involved. But Tyler said no, said being second place was worse than not being there at all. And then came the breaking point. Tyler told Jake he wasn't coming to the wedding, said he couldn't stand by and watch a betrayal unfold, like he was testifying in a courtroom drama instead of missing a shrimp cocktail and an open bar. Then their dad got involved, and of course, he sided with Tyler. He said Jake was picking friendship over family, that it was a slap in the face to Tyler, and that blood comes first. Keep in mind, this is the same dad who forgot Jake's birthday 2 years in a row. But now he's suddenly father of the year because Tyler's feelings are hurt. The worst part? He started pressuring me. Called me one night and asked if I could convince Jake to do the right thing. Said it would set the tone for the whole marriage, and that compromise starts at the altar. I wanted to scream. Instead, I calmly told him that Jake's already compromised enough, like when we chose a venue closer to his side of the family, or when we agreed to let his mother do a reading, even though she once told me I seem like someone who doesn't enjoy Christmas, but that wasn't even the worst part. His mother, yes, the very same, decided to take Tyler's side too. She told Jake that she would feel uncomfortable attending the wedding if there was division in the family. So let's recap. Jake picked his best friend as best man. His stepbrother threw a tantrum. His dad and mom joined the tantrum. And suddenly we're debating whether to postpone the wedding because of it. The stress hit Jake like a truck. He started second-guessing everything. Maybe I should just ask Tyler. It's not worth all this. But I told him, if he caves now, we're going to be fighting battles like this for the next 50 years. Every Christmas, every family vacation, every baby name. This is where patience finally snapped. We sat down together and sent out one final message to the family. Adam is my best man. Tyler is invited to be a groomsman. That's the final decision. If you choose not to attend over this, we'll assume you're making space for people who actually want to celebrate with us. Short, direct, no apologies. You'd think that would be the end, right? Oh no. The next day, Tyler posted a Facebook status about toxic family dynamics and being erased from milestones. He tagged Jake. He tagged their dad. He even tagged the venue, like the Hilton Garden Inn was personally responsible for his exclusion. Cue drama. A few relatives started chiming in, some defending Jake, some siding with Tyler. One aunt wrote, "This is why I eloped," and honestly, I felt that. But then something wild happened. People started uninviting themselves from the drama. Not from the wedding, from the drama. Messages started coming in like, "Hey, I'm still coming. Can't wait for the cake." Or, "Team sanity over here. Save me a seat." Even a cousin we hadn't talked to in years wrote, "Not sure who Tyler is, but I'll take his filet mignon." And that's when the whole plan fell apart. Tyler realized he overplayed his hand. The sympathy well dried up. People were tired. The more he talked, the more ridiculous he sounded. The wedding went ahead. No changes. Adam stood up as best man. Tyler showed up late, sat in the back, and wore sunglasses indoors like he was mourning his dignity. The best part? Adam crushed his best man speech. Not corny, not overdone, just heartfelt. Talked about friendship, loyalty, and how some people come into your life late and some stay for the long haul. It was clearly about Jake, but you could feel Tyler stewing. After the wedding, Jake and I agreed. If picking a best man nearly detonated our whole day, then maybe Tyler was never going to be just a stepbrother. Maybe he was always going to be a problem disguised as family. I guess the real title that caused all this wasn't best man, it was main character. But while some people destroy weddings, others just destroy jobs. The first time it happened, I thought it was just bad luck. I'd been working at a small marketing agency for about 3 weeks when HR pulled me in for a quick chat. Apparently, someone had left a string of aggressive voicemails accusing me of lying on my resume, claiming I used AI to cheat at tasks, and alleging that I talked about co-workers behind their backs. All completely false, but weirdly specific. They couldn't prove anything, and I hadn't actually done anything wrong, so they let me go without cause. To avoid drama. I went home stunned. I told my girlfriend, Olivia, who hugged me and told me I was too good for that place anyway. She poured me a glass of wine, ordered takeout, and said, "You'll bounce back." You always do, and I believed her. Next job, I get hired at a tech startup doing client onboarding. 2 weeks in, I start noticing little things. 1-star Glassdoor reviews mentioning my full name, calling me untrustworthy, erratic, barely shows up to work. Another anonymous report claimed I'd stolen petty cash. I didn't even have access to petty cash. Then someone emailed the CEO claiming to be a former coworker, saying I left in disgrace at my last company. The language was eerily familiar. That job let me go too. Quietly. No legal drama, just we're going in another direction. At this point, I started spiraling. I updated all my passwords. I deleted old social accounts. I even started job hunting under a different nickname just to avoid recognition. And guess what? I got hired again, this time at a graphic design firm. You can probably guess what happened next. Only this time, it got worse. A coworker casually asked me, "Hey, did you really get arrested for fraud?" I was like, "What?" Apparently someone sent around a fake screenshot of a mugshot with my name photoshopped over it. The URL wasn't even real. It looked like a news site, but the font was off. The layout was janky. Just believable enough to do damage. HR strongly recommended I resign before it got more complicated. I went home and told Olivia again, almost in tears. I couldn't believe my luck. 3 jobs down in less than 5 months. And just like before, she hugged me. Told me I was being targeted, that I must have jealous enemies. She even offered to help me scrub my online presence. Said, "Let's do it together. I'll help you start fresh." But then came the breaking point. Job number 4. I landed a remote contract role with a PR firm. It was fully online, minimal visibility, and I didn't even post about it anywhere. I figured if I kept it low-key, whoever was sabotaging me wouldn't catch on. I lasted 8 days. Day 9, my manager sends me a Slack message. "Hey, not sure if this is a prank, but someone sent our CEO a Google Doc claiming you plagiarized your college thesis and have a history of falsifying contracts. A Google." Doctor. My heart dropped. It even had screenshots, faked, and quotes from fake professors. The formatting, immaculate. Too immaculate. That's when I noticed something. A single name in the document properties. Just one little autofill tag left behind. Olivia R. It didn't register at first. I stared at the screen, blinking, refreshing, reopening. Maybe it was someone else with her name, except I opened the version history. Every version, every change, her account. That's when everything unraveled. I went into full investigator mode, checked the metadata, timestamps, device IDs. It was all her. All 4 coincidental firings, the Glassdoor reviews, the fake emails, the voicemails, they all originated from the same IP, our shared Wi-Fi. And then I found the file, buried deep in her laptop's documents folder, a spreadsheet titled Work History, Do Not Delete. I opened it. It had every job I'd ever applied to. Notes, dates, HR contact names, application status, and a column labeled Action Taken. One row said Submitted False Glassdoor Review. Another said emailed fake reference to recruiter. Another, phase 2 sabotage, wait until week 3. It was like a hit list. I felt sick. My whole body buzzing with adrenaline and disbelief. I couldn't breathe. When she came home, I didn't even wait. I confronted her, just held up her laptop and asked, "What is this?" She went ghost white, started shaking, then burst into tears. She admitted everything, said it started as a joke, that she just wanted me to stay home more, that she was scared I'd leave her if I got too successful, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. The spreadsheet. Just a way to keep track. She blamed her abandonment issues. Her last boyfriend cheated. Her parents divorced. Her therapist validated her fear of being alone. She said, "I thought if you were struggling, you'd need me more." And here's the kicker. She genuinely thought that was romantic. I didn't even yell. I just left, packed a bag, and walked out. The next day, I sent all the evidence to the police and to every employer she had contacted. Some offered to reinstate me. One offered legal help. HR teams were furious. I also emailed the people who donated to that GoFundMe. Olivia started to support my unemployment journey. Yep, that happened too. She raised $800 on my behalf and kept the money. I filed a restraining order. And to this day, I still get messages from fake burner accounts saying I overreacted or that I misunderstood her intentions. Yeah, nah. Imagine someone loving you so much, they burn your entire life down just so they can hand you the hose. From terrifying to tacky, let's talk about the woman who Venmo charged her friend $12 for lasagna. We hadn't seen each other in months. She'd moved across the city, I'd started a new job, and life just got busy. So when she texted me out of nowhere, "Hey, miss you. Come over tonight, I'll cook." I was honestly excited. Let's call her Alyssa. We've been friends since college. Not super close anymore, but enough history that when someone says, "I'll make dinner," you assume it's just a friendly hang. No expectations, no weirdness. Just two people catching up over pasta. When I got there, she was already halfway through cooking. Lasagna, garlic bread, salad, the whole thing. It smelled amazing. She even poured me a glass of wine and said, "Don't worry, this one's not from a box." We laughed. It felt casual, easy. Dinner was great. We talked about work, dating disasters, her new Pilates instructor that looks like a young Gandalf. You know, normal, unhinged friend conversation. I told her I miss nights like this, where you just eat and talk and everything feels low stress. She smiled and said, "Right? Grown-up friendship." So imagine my surprise the next morning when I wake up to a Venmo notification from Alyssa. Request, $12, dinner, groceries. At first I thought it was a joke, like a meme. Maybe she was trolling me and about to send a follow-up message like, "LOL, gotcha." So I replied, "Haha, what?" with the crying, laughing emoji. No response. An hour later I texted her. "Wait, you're serious?" She replied, "Groceries are expensive these days." I made that lasagna from scratch. I stared at my phone. This was a $12 slice of friendship lasagna? I didn't even get leftovers. I didn't want to make it weird, so I paid $12 for a meal I didn't ask for, at her invitation, in her house, using wine she poured, and then it got weirder. The next week she posted on Instagram, "Friendly reminder, your time and effort have value. Don't be afraid to charge for your energy." I think I was the energy. A few mutual friends saw the story and messaged me. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she hosted and then charged. One girl got hit with a $7 request for tea and cookies. Another got billed for an accidental Uber ride Alyssa claimed was emotional labor related. One guy told me she billed him for brunch because he used more than one egg's worth of omelette. It was like she'd turned her entire social circle into a pay-per-view service. And here's where it gets absurd. A friend in our group chat, let's call her Maya, decided to test the theory. She invited Alyssa over for dinner, made a full spread, didn't say a word about money. After dinner, they watched a movie. Alyssa left. All normal. The next day, Maya sends her a Venmo request. $12, dinner plus hospitality. Alyssa lost it. She called Maya petty, immature, said real friends don't nickel and dime each other, claimed it was an ambush, and that she never agreed to that energy exchange. Energy exchange. This woman out here running friendships like a subscription box. That's when everything unraveled. People started quietly distancing, Plans got mysteriously rescheduled. Group chats dried up. Alyssa posted a Notes app screenshot on her story. I will no longer tolerate being used. My boundaries are not negotiable. If you can't pay for time, you don't deserve access to mine. Then someone, not me, but I wish it was, and replied, Girl, you charge me for garlic bread. She deleted the post. Last I heard, she's pivoted to being a conscious living coach and offers one-on-one sessions on reciprocal value alignment for $88 per hour. I genuinely thought it couldn't get more ridiculous. I was wrong. She's now selling friendship invoices, literal digital templates so you too can charge your friends for hangouts. The Etsy description says, normalize monetized connection. You'd think that's petty until you hear about the guy who demanded his girlfriend stop showering. When I say the drama started over a shower, I'm not exaggerating. My girlfriend, Kayla, worked overnight shifts at the hospital, exhausting high-stress stuff. Most mornings she'd swing by my house, well, technically my mum's house, crash for a few hours, shower, and then head home once traffic died down. It was kind of our routine. Now, important detail, my mum rents out her basement to a guy named Rick. Mid-40s, jobless by choice, permanently in sweatpants, and the kind of person who calls 9 p.m. late. We referred to him as Rick the Cave Troll behind his back, and honestly, that was generous. At first, everything was fine. Kayla would arrive around 8, quiet as a mouse, shower quickly, then knock out for a nap upstairs in my room. Rick never said a word, mostly because he rarely emerged from his underground kingdom. But then came the complaint. One morning, my mum corners me in the kitchen with that, "We need to talk," energy. Rick says your girlfriend's showering is too disruptive, she says like she's delivering a serious HR report. I blinked. Disruptive how? Apparently the sound of water at 8:30 a.m. was too much for Rick's circadian rhythm. His words, not mine. He claimed he was being startled awake by violent pipe noises, which made it impossible for him to focus on his creative work. This man writes conspiracy blogs on Reddit. That's his creative work. So I said the obvious thing. It's a shower. It's not like she's pressure washing the ceiling. My mum gave me this helpless shrug. Well, Rick says it's affecting his mental health. Maybe she could wait until noon. Kayla works nights. Noon is bedtime. That's not a compromise. That's sabotage. I went back to Kayla, told her what happened. She laughed at first, thought I was kidding. But when she realized I wasn't, she got quiet. The next morning she texted me, I'll just go home after work from now on. Don't want to cause problems. And just like that, our routine disappeared. No more breakfast together. No more post-shift venting sessions. No more quick naps in my room with her hair still damp from the shower. Just silence. But that wasn't even the worst part. A week later, my mum pulled me aside again, this time to say she was disappointed in me. Apparently, Rick told her that Kayla was rude, inconsiderate, and entitled. He also said he felt unsafe knowing there was a stranger in the house during his vulnerable sleep hours. This man has lived in my mom's basement for 4 years and only pays $400 a month. Meanwhile, Kayla brings homemade soup when my mum's sick and helped shovel snow off the driveway last winter. But sure, she's the threat. I asked my mum, do you even believe that? Or are you just scared of upsetting Rick? She said, and I quote, he's very sensitive. He's been through a lot. What has he been through? A gluten-free diet? And here's where it gets absurd. Kayla eventually stopped coming over entirely. Said she didn't feel welcome. Said it felt like being punished for basic hygiene. And yeah, she was pissed. Not even about Rick, really. More about the fact that my mom backed him up. Like, why was a grown woman with a stable job being treated like the disruptive one when the guy living in a basement dungeon was calling the shots? She was right to be mad. But then my mum turned the blame on me. She told me I was letting Kayla create tension in the house, that I used to be so easygoing before I started dating someone who challenges things. You mean someone who challenges the idea that women should quietly disappear because Rick the Goblin King needs his beauty sleep? This is where patience finally snapped. I told my mom point blank, you're choosing to prioritize a grown man throwing tantrums over a girl who's done nothing but show respect. She said, well, Rick pays rent. Cool. You know who doesn't? Me. I live here rent-free, so technically, I'm even more disruptive than Kayla, right? Dead silence. I packed an overnight bag and stayed at Kayla's place for a few days. I thought some distance might cool things off, But guess what? The next day, Rick posts on Facebook about toxic guests who don't respect shared spaces and how boundaries are healthy, even if people don't like them. No names, but it was pretty obvious. One of our old neighbors commented, "Glad to see you're doing well, Rick." And he replied, "Trying." Some people make it difficult. Oh, so we're doing passive-aggressive war now. I showed the post to Kayla. She just shook her head and said, "Your mum lets him live in the basement for cheap, and he's acting like you're the guest." She had a point. I finally gave my mum an ultimatum. I said, if Kayla's not welcome here, I'm not either. I made it clear, this wasn't about the shower. This was about choosing comfort over fairness, enabling over boundaries, and suddenly, the whole plan fell apart. Rick moved out a month later, claimed he needed a quieter environment to focus on his creative goals. Pretty sure someone in the family threatened to report the mold problem in the basement to the city. Not saying it was me, but it was definitely me. After he left, my mum tried to apologize, said she didn't realize how much it was affecting things, said she missed Kayla, asked if we wanted to come over for dinner sometime. I said we'd think about it. Kayla hasn't been back to the house since. And honestly, I don't blame her. I still see my mom, but we meet at cafes now. Neutral ground, no basement drama, no weird rules about morning routines. You'd think that was the pettiest boundary ever, until you hear about the guy who demanded his girlfriend stop showering altogether. She was perfect, like suspiciously perfect. We matched on a dating app during one of those late-night scroll sessions where you're more bored than hopeful. Her profile was full of books I'd read, bands I loved, quotes I actually recognized, not just Pinterest fluff. Her name was Ella. She even listed my exact favorite horror movie, the original, not the remake, which nobody ever does. We started talking, and it was instant chemistry. Every message from her felt easy, clever, flirty in a thoughtful way, the kind of connection you don't swipe past. She laughed at my dumb memes, asked deep questions, remembered stuff I said, like the name of my childhood dog. Within a week, we were texting every day. Within 2, we were calling. Late-night convos where she'd say things like, "I've never clicked this fast with someone," and I believed her. The weird part, she never wanted to video chat. She always had a reason. Bad lighting, dying phone battery, just got out of the shower. I wasn't trying to push it, but still. Little red flag. Then came the breaking point. She sent me a picture of her reading by candlelight, and something about it felt off. The lighting didn't match the text overlay. So, and I don't even know what made me do this. I reverse image searched the photo. And yeah, it was a Pinterest pin from 2019, so I ran her profile pic through a tool too. Result, Swedish fashion model, 200,000 Instagram followers. Zero connection to Ella or anyone in my city. Everything snapped into place. The way her stories always sounded a little too perfect. The fact that she always agreed with me. The coincidences about shared music. The suspicious gaps in her schedule. All of it. Manufactured. At this point, I was equal parts creeped out and curious. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I tried baiting her. I made up a band. Just totally fake. Said I'd been listening to them non-stop. Violet Engine. She replied, "Oh my god, I love them. Their last EP was incredible. There is no EP. There is no band." I finally called her out. Sent her screenshots of the model. The stock images. The fake band trap. And I just said, "Who are you?" She went silent for an hour. Then she replied. A paragraph. She admitted everything. Said her name wasn't Ella. Said she worked at my office. In the same building, different floor. She'd seen me in the break room a few times and thought I was sweet and quiet and probably wouldn't hurt anyone. So obviously that meant I was the perfect guy to test her theory. See, she'd just gotten out of a toxic relationship. Her ex told her she was unlovable, boring, and would never connect with anyone again. So she made a fake profile to prove him wrong. I was the test subject. She even used a checklist, took mental notes on how I responded to certain messages. She said it wasn't meant to go this far, but then I started to really like you. Which, okay, cool, but you're still a liar. And here's where it gets absurd. I asked her why. She didn't just talk to me as herself, since she clearly knew who I was. You know what she said? "I didn't think you'd go for someone like me." You seem really emotionally grounded, which is a weird compliment/insult, considering she'd just finished gaslighting me with a fake persona for 3 weeks. She wanted to start fresh, said she'd delete the profile and we could try again. For real, this time. I told her no. I wasn't even angry at that point, just tired. Like, you don't get to drop the mask after you emotionally trap someone and ask them to pretend none of it was performative. That's not romance. That's emotional catfishing with extra steps. You almost have to admire the audacity. She ended up quitting a month later. I guess the shame caught up with her. Word got around quietly. I never told anyone, but people noticed she left in a hurry. Every now and then I wonder if she ever used that fake profile again. If there was another test subject after me, another person being analyzed in a makeshift rom-com experiment gone off the rails. Lesson learned. If someone agrees with everything you say and likes every obscure thing you like, they're either a soulmate or they're using you to heal from their breakup by pretending to be hot Swedish Pinterest girl. What happens when you mess with a Redditor's vacation time? You get exposed. I booked my vacation 6 months in advance. 6. I even color-coded it on our shared work calendar, sent multiple reminders, and got written approval in the HR system. I wasn't going anywhere fancy, just a quiet week at my cousin's lake cabin, completely offline, away from people, noise, and the constant ping of email notifications. Everything was confirmed. My workload was covered. I even helped my team prep for the week I'd be out, just so nobody would be overwhelmed while I was gone. Basically, I did everything right. And then, 2 days before I was supposed to leave, my boss dropped the bomb. "We're going to need you next week," she said in the most casual tone imaginable, like she was asking me to stay late for a meeting. I thought she was joking, laughed even, but she just looked at me dead serious and added, "I know you submitted PTO, but I forgot to block it in the team planner, and we have a lot going on." Forgot to block it? That's not how PTO works, I said, but it's approved. I literally sent you 3 reminder emails. You replied to one with a thumbs up emoji. She gave me this blank stare and said, "Well, sometimes plans change. Leadership needs to be flexible." Ah, yes, leadership. The magical word that makes your time off disappear. I told her I wasn't canceling my trip, that I'd planned it months ago and followed every protocol. She shrugged and said, "If you're not here, that's going to reflect poorly. But that's your choice, and here's where it gets absurd." She assigned me a full slate of deliverables, reports, 2 presentations, even client follow-up calls. Stuff I was definitely not doing from a cabin in the woods with 0 cell service. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay," left the office, and went home. Then I opened my email and got to work, but not on her assignments. I started pulling receipts. Screenshots of the PTO approval, calendar blocks, Slack messages where I reminded her, email threads where she replied, "Sounds good," or "Enjoy your time off." I even had a timestamped chat from the month prior where she told me to totally unplug, and then I sent it all to HR. No dramatic email, no accusations, just a message that said, greater than, "Hi, just wanted to flag a situation that's come up. I had pre-approved PTO for next week, but was just told I'll be expected to work regardless. I've attached the relevant documentation," and then I left. I didn't check email. I didn't respond to Slack. I didn't touch a single deliverable. I spent the week sitting by a lake, reading books, eating grilled cheese, and occasionally laughing out loud at the absurdity of it all. But that wasn't even the worst part. When I got back, she was waiting at my desk. "I saw what you sent to HR," she said. "You completely blindsided me." I said, "I gave you 6 months' notice." And then I gave HR documentation. "You did this to yourself," she was fuming. Called me insubordinate, said I was undermining leadership, claimed I'd created an adversarial environment by going behind her back. You know what I did? I smiled. And I said, "I didn't go behind your back. I went through the proper channels, which is more than I can say for how you handled my time off," and then I walked away. Because honestly, I was done. A week later, an all-staff email went out. Leadership transition. That's corporate speak for someone got canned. Guess who was gone? HR never told me exactly what happened, but word got around. Apparently, mine wasn't the only PTO she'd tried to override. And the way she blew up at me after quietly getting reported? Not great optics. It's wild how their ego did all the heavy lifting. New manager came in 2 weeks later. First conversation we had, she said, I saw how organized your PTO request was. Thanks for modeling best practices. Yeah, that's right. Best practices. So now, every time I submit time off, I make a joke in the comment section. Not flexible. Late cabin greater than leadership. HR thinks it's hilarious. You like revenge? Wait until you hear what happened when someone stole a parking spot. Assigned parking is sacred. Anyone who's lived in a packed apartment complex knows. If you're paying extra for a reserved spot, that spot is yours. It's basically the only thing protecting you from circling the lot like a buzzard every night. So when someone steals it, that's war. I live in a medium-sized apartment complex. Not fancy, but not run down either. The kind of place where people keep to themselves, but everyone knows the rules. My spot was clearly marked, numbered, had the painted label, the sign, even a little reserved stencil from management, and I paid $45 extra a month for it. Every month. Enter the new guy. He moved in 2 doors down, right across the breezeway. The first time he parked in my spot, I assumed it was a mistake. Honest mix-up. So I left a polite note under his windshield wiper. Hey neighbor, just FYI, this is a reserved spot. I pay for it each month. Spot number 87 is all yours. Thanks. The next day, his car was there again. Okay, maybe he didn't see the note. So I printed another one, this time in bold, friendly font. Laminated it, 'cause yeah, I'm that person now. And even attached a copy of the lease policy where it says explicitly that assigned parking is enforced 24/7 and violators can be towed. Still there the day after. That's when I stopped being polite. I knocked on his door. He opened it, clearly annoyed I interrupted his game or whatever. I said, hey, I think we've got a parking mix-up. You've been in my spot all week, and without even blinking, he goes, yeah, but it's closer to my unit. Not, I'm sorry, not, I didn't know. Just full-on entitlement. I replied, right, but it's not yours. I pay for it. I've left notes, and the office has your assigned number. He shrugged, said, talk to management then, and shut the door. So I did. I sent an email with photos, timestamps, and copies of the notes I'd left. Office replied that they'd speak with him, which apparently translated to, we're going to send him a strongly worded suggestion he can ignore, because 2 days later his car was still in my spot, like a monument to passive aggression. And here's where it gets absurd. I started parking on the street, waking up early to move my car before street sweeping, carrying groceries an extra block in the dark. Meanwhile, he was walking 5 steps from my paid spot like a king. So I did what I should have done a week ago. I called the towing company listed on the parking sign, gave them my spot number, showed my lease, and asked if they could come that night. They said yes. Next morning, his car was gone. I'll never forget the sound of the knock on my door, like thunder in a hallway. I opened it and there he was, red-faced, veins popping, screaming, "You had my car towed?" I stayed calm, just nodded and said, "You must be new here. Assigned parking means assigned. Have a great day." He stormed off. I shut the door, and then I laughed for 5 solid minutes. But that wasn't even the worst part for him, because apparently his car wasn't registered with the complex yet, and when he went to claim it from the impound lot, they charged him extra. Over $300 cash only, plus an ID check. Took him half a day to get it out. And when he complained to management, they pulled up the emails I'd sent, the lease agreement, and the photos. Office sided with me 100%. The guy didn't say a word to me after that. But he did start parking in the correct spot, all the way at the back corner of the lot. Karma has excellent aim, and now every time I pull into my clean, shady little spot, I smile just a little harder than I used to. From cars to kids. Next up, a dad who told his daughter she owes him $17,000 for a pool. She was 12 when she first asked. It was one of those relentless, wide-eyed requests that only kids can get away with. The kind where they think if they just repeat it enough times, it'll magically happen. Can we get a pool? Please, please, please. I'll do anything. We didn't even have a backyard that was ready for a pool at the time. But to her credit, she wore us down. Charts, Pinterest boards, price comparisons, even a very passionate PowerPoint presentation titled Top 10 Reasons a Pool Will Improve Our Lives. She included footnotes. Eventually, we caved, with a condition. One big, clear, non-negotiable condition. When you turn 16 and get a job, you'll pay us back for half. She nodded without hesitation. At the time, $17,000 was an imaginary number to her. Monopoly money. The kind of number you say yes to when you think being 16 means driving to Starbucks and listening to Taylor Swift on loop. Not taxes and payroll deductions. The pool got built. She got her pool parties, her selfies, her birthday luau. She even made TikToks about it. It was her dream, and we gave it to her. But we kept our word too, and documented everything. Receipts, installments, shared a Google Doc titled Pool Agreement, signed and dated by all three of us. She loved the idea then, made her feel grown up, but then 16 rolled around, and so did her first paycheck. Suddenly, that pool wasn't just chlorine and floaties anymore. It was a debt, I reminded her, gently at first. Hey, remember your pool fund agreement? We can sit down this weekend and figure out how much to set aside per paycheck. She blinked like I'd spoken in another language. Wait, you were serious about that? Oh, we were dead serious. She scoffed. But that was 4 years ago. I was a kid. It's not like I really agreed to that. And here's where it gets absurd. She tried to argue that the contract was void because she signed it as a minor. Like she was a tiny corporate lawyer now. My husband laughed so hard he had to leave the room. She said she needed a paycheck for other things. Gas, phone bill, a prom dress, hair and nails, senior trip, you name it. But we stood firm. This is about responsibility. You wanted the pool. You made a promise. We delivered. Now it's your turn. We weren't demanding it all at once, just monthly installments, manageable ones. But even that was too much for her. So she tried emotional warfare. You're the only parents I know who would charge their kid for a pool. She cried, she yelled, she called us selfish, said we were ruining her senior year, claimed all her friends' parents bought them things without expecting payback. And that's when everything unraveled. We told her she could pause the payments if she wanted to give up the pool. Not just symbolically, literally. We'd cancel the maintenance contract, drain it, and fill it in next spring. You'd think we'd threatened to burn down Disneyland. She lost it. That's not fair. You can't just take it away. I've already used it. I raised an eyebrow. Exactly. And now it's time to pay your share. To be clear, we're not hurting financially. We didn't need the money, but this was a principle thing. She needed to learn what commitment actually looks like. That long-term decisions don't disappear when the mood changes. Still, it became a standoff. She stopped talking to us unless absolutely necessary, slammed doors, ate meals in her room. Her dramatic high school energy was at full volume. My husband started to feel bad, said maybe we were being a little harsh, that maybe a partial payback was more reasonable. I reminded him that we'd both agreed to this plan years ago, and that she had agreed too. If we fold now, what exactly are we teaching her? But then came the breaking point. Prom weekend. She told us she'd need $600 for the dress, limo share, and salon appointments. I said, sure, after you make your first payment. She looked at me like I'd kicked her puppy. This is literally the most important night of my life. I deadpanned. That pool seemed like the most important thing 4 years ago. Funny how priorities change. She went completely silent. And then the next day, we got a Venmo payment, $112, her first installment. Caption said, pool blood money. Honestly, I was proud. I didn't show it, obviously, but I was. She went to prom. She looked amazing, paid for most of it herself, and when she came home, she flopped onto the couch and said, okay. I get it now. I raised an eyebrow. She said, responsibility sucks, but fine. Lesson learned. She still grumbles when she sends each monthly payment, but she's made everyone, on time. And at some point, she started joking about it. She'll tell people, yeah, my parents are the IRS of pool debt, but she'll laugh when she says it. Honestly, I think we did the right thing, because now every time she takes a swim, she knows it wasn't just handed to her. She earned it, even if it came with chlorine and character development. If you think that's cold parenting, you won't believe what this mom did with her wedding invites. It was supposed to be a simple RSVP. My son had been dating the same girl for 5 years. Sweet, kind, the kind of person who remembers birthdays and brings thank you cards. Naturally, when it came time to plan my wedding, I made sure she was on the guest list right next to him. No question about it. They'd been together so long I wouldn't have been surprised if they were the next ones getting married. Honestly, she already felt like part of the family. So when I got the RSVP back, it said exactly what I expected. Attending, with his girlfriend's name. Great. Done. Locked in. Then, a week before the wedding, I get a text. Not a call. Not even a heads up over coffee. A text. Hey, just letting you know I'll be bringing someone else to the wedding. Things didn't work out with his girlfriend. Long story, I'll fill you in later. Long story, number. No, no, no. You don't drop a bomb like that 7 days before the wedding and then hit me with long story. Not when I have place cards printed and catering counts submitted. I called him immediately. He answers on speaker, sounding way too casual for someone delivering social napalm. I asked him, point blank, what happened. And here's where it gets absurd. He cheated, admitted it like it was no big deal, said things had run their course with his girlfriend and he caught feelings for someone else. Oh, and the new girl? They'd been together for 2 weeks. I was stunned, not just at the timeline, but at the audacity of thinking he could waltz in with a brand new date to my wedding, like it was a house party. So I told him flat out, if he's not coming with his girlfriend, he's not coming at all. He went silent. Then he laughed, like I was joking. I already took the time off work. The flights are booked, I said, and you should have thought about that before you nuked a 5-year relationship and tried to parade the fallout through my ceremony like it's normal. He hung up. And here's where it gets messy. The family group chat exploded. Apparently he ran crying to everyone, said I was punishing him, being dramatic, and taking sides. My sister called me to say I was ruining my own wedding over some girlfriend drama. My cousin asked if I was really going to go through with banning my own son, and my mother, and who I love dearly, told me to be the bigger person. I wanted to scream. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just some random +1 swap. This was a betrayal, not just of his girlfriend, but of the trust and respect I thought we'd built. And worse, he wasn't even sorry. He treated it like it was inconvenient for him that I was upset. Not once did he ask how she was doing. Not once did he acknowledge the discomfort of having to explain to dozens of people why the guest list suddenly changed. So, yeah, I uninvited him. And that's when everything unraveled. The day before the wedding, my sister sent me his new RSVP anyway, with the new girl's name written in Sharpie over the old one. I kid you not. I called the venue to double confirm he and his guest weren't allowed entry. He still showed up, at the venue, in a suit, with his date. I intercepted him at the lobby before the ceremony. He tried to hug me. I stepped back. He asked, "Are you really doing this right now?" I said, "You did this?" Not me. He stared for a second like he was trying to guilt me into changing my mind. And then he said it. The thing that made me see red. "She's not even mad about it anymore." "You're more upset than she is." "Oh? You mean the woman you cheated on and blindsided a week before a major family event? The one who cried on my couch for 2 days because she didn't even get a real explanation?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "This isn't about her anymore. This is about you, about how you treat people, and how you think there are no consequences." He left. Finally. And let me tell you, the wedding was peaceful, beautiful, no drama. Everyone who should have been there was there. But of course, the fallout didn't end. Post-wedding, I got emails from family members trying to mediate. One person actually said I owe him an apology for making a scene. Right. Because nothing says ruining a wedding like enforcing your own boundaries. A few days later, I got a message from his now ex. Yep, already broken up, apologizing for the whole mess. She said she didn't even want to come, but he pressured her into it. And the kicker? His original girlfriend sent me a thank you card. She said, "I know you didn't have to stand up for me, but it meant more than you know." And that was the final word on the whole thing. I didn't overreact, I protected the peace. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what weddings should be about. Love, honesty, and not rewarding people who weaponize your grace. Now, a story about roommates and fish. You've been warned. I came home from work that night ready to just chill. It had been one of those days. You know, the kind where every email is passive-aggressive and every meeting should have been an email. Yeah, that kind. All I wanted was to throw on some sweatpants, scroll aimlessly for 20 minutes, and zone out while watching my fish. I have a tank. It's not massive or anything, just a small setup in my room. A few tropical fish, some LED lights, plants, rocks, a bubbler. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. And Nacho was my favorite. Yes, I named him Nacho. No, I don't regret it. He was this bright orange platy with little black spots on his fins. Kind of looked like a Dorito with attitude. He'd always swim to the front of the tank when I walked in, like a little aquatic puppy. I loved that fish way more than I probably should have. So, that night, I walk into my room, and the tank looks off. The light's on, the filter's running, but something's missing. I count. 1, 2, 3. No Nacho. I check behind the plants, under the rocks, even behind the filter. Nothing. And just to make sure I wasn't going insane, I asked my roommate, casually at first, "Hey, have you seen Nacho, my orange one? He's in the kitchen, standing over the counter, chopping something. He doesn't even look up when he says, 'Oh yeah.' I ate him. I just stood there. Like, I physically couldn't process what I just heard. You... what?" He looks up, dead serious, and says, "Yeah, I wanted to try sashimi." Didn't have anything else in the fridge. I honestly thought he was joking. He was not. This man, my adult roommate whom I trusted enough to share a lease with, reached into my fish tank, grabbed my pet fish, and ate him raw. And then, I swear to you, he holds out a plate and goes, "Wanna try a piece?" I didn't even know how to respond. I think I made some kind of noise. Genuinely, the shock was so overwhelming, I might have just blinked like an animatronic. He shrugs like I'm the weird one and says, "Relax, it's just a fish." That's when everything unraveled. I started yelling. Not screaming, but that cold, clipped yelling you do when you're trying not to lose your entire mind. Nacho was my pet. He wasn't food. He was alive this morning. And this guy, I'm not making this up, laughs. He laughs and goes, "You act like I boiled your dog." I genuinely thought this couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Because then he goes into this whole monologue about how fish don't have feelings, and I'm being overly emotional, and how if I didn't want him touched, I should have put a note on the tank. A note. Like I was supposed to slap a post-it on the glass that says, "Please do not consume the living creatures inside." And here's where it gets absurd. Apparently this wasn't the first time. He admitted, proudly, that he's sampled other pets before. A goldfish from a friend's house, a shrimp from an ex's tank. He called it urban foraging. I had to sit down. My hands were shaking. I asked him, very calmly, "Why would you think that's even remotely okay?" He shrugged again and said, "I figured you'd get over it." That's when I snapped. I went full petty mode, turned into the villain origin story version of myself. First, I texted our landlord, explained that one roommate had consumed the other's pet. Landlord didn't believe me at first, but I sent a screenshot of our messages and a photo of Nacho I'd posted on Instagram just 2 days before. RIP, little buddy. Then I called the animal control non-emergency line just to see if there were any legal ramifications. Apparently, because it was a pet and not just livestock, it technically counted as destruction of property. Civil case territory. Not worth it, but good to know. So I pivoted. I went through every single group chat we had in common. Our friend circle, our shared fantasy football league, even his gym group. I posted a very polite but detailed account of what happened. Let's just say, people were not on his side. He got roasted so hard in the chats he left half of them voluntarily. One friend said, "This sounds like something out of a Netflix true crime doc." Another asked if he was planning to eat her parrot next. You almost have to admire the audacity. But the real kicker? I bought a new tank, upgraded. Bigger, better filter, new plants, new decor, and I put it in the living room. Right in his line of sight, filled it with neon tetras and one big, beautiful orange gourami. Named it Nacho 2, Judgment Day. And every time he walked by it, I smiled and said, "Don't worry, I added lemon pepper flakes just for you." He moved out 2 weeks later. Never paid his share of the internet bill, but honestly, worth it. How do you top that? Easy. A guy who proposed to his girlfriend's twin. We'd been together 3 years. 3 solid, comfortable, happy years. We met in college. A dorm party, red Solo cups, a lot of yelling over music. She was the only one who laughed at my dumb joke about Pop-Tarts being ravioli. I was instantly hooked. And yes, she has a twin. Identical. I mean scary identical. Same face, same laugh, same exact eye roll when I talk about sci-fi movies. But they've always had their own style. Different hair, different vibe, different energy. Usually. But the day of the proposal? Yeah, that was the day they decided to pull a Parent Trap level of chaos without even realizing it. It was her birthday. And I'd been planning this thing for weeks. I bought the ring, had it custom engraved, even got her family involved. It was supposed to be low-key but meaningful. Just close friends and family at this vineyard her mom loves. Her twin, let's call her Bree, helped coordinate the whole thing. The problem started the second they walked in, because they were matching. Same white sundress, same hairstyle, same gold necklace they both got from their grandma. Apparently, it was an inside joke, something about how people always mix them up, and they wanted to lean into the chaos. You know, haha, harmless fun, except I didn't get the memo. So, when I turned around, holding the ring box, trying not to pass out from nerves, I locked eyes with who I thought was my girlfriend, and I went for it. I said her name. She smiled, and I dropped to one knee. Now here's where things went from awkward to unhinged, because Bree didn't say anything. She just stood there. I don't know if it was panic, confusion, or just pure sibling mischief, but she let me go through my entire speech. The "you make me a better man" bit, the "I can't imagine life without you" line, the whole dramatic thing. And then she laughed out loud and said, "Wrong twin, genius." The whole group was watching. Phones were out. Her mom had tears in her eyes. That immediately turned into horror. Her dad looked like he aged 5 years on the spot. And then I turned. My actual girlfriend, let's call her Liv, was standing 5 feet away, face completely unreadable, frozen. That's when everything unraveled. I tried to backpedal, tried to explain that I was nervous, that they looked the same, that it was an honest mistake, but it was too late. Liv just said, "You called her by my name. How long have you not been able to tell us apart?" Cue every ounce of blood in my body evacuating to my toes. Because now it wasn't just a slip-up. It became this whole thing, this question of how often I'd confused them. If I ever texted the wrong one, if I'd ever accidentally said Bree's name when I meant Liv's. And here's where it gets absurd. Apparently, Bree had noticed something before. A text that seemed a little too flirty. A time I hugged her from behind at a family barbecue before realizing it was the wrong sister. Totally innocent, totally explainable. But in the heat of the moment, it didn't feel that way. Bree looked mortified. Liv looked betrayed. I looked like I'd just opened a portal to social hell. I tried to clarify again, that it was the dress, the necklace, the angle of the sun, for God's sake. But Liv just walked away. The crowd, silent. Even the grapevines looked judgmental. That night, I texted her 1,000 times. Apologized, tried to explain, offered to show her the speech I meant to give. She left me on red. I didn't sleep. The next day, I tried showing up at her place. Bree answered, said Liv wasn't there, and then she handed me the ring. Didn't say a word, just gave me a sad little nod and closed the door. You ever stand outside someone's apartment holding a returned engagement ring and realize you might have just ruined the best thing that ever happened to you? Because of a sundress? Yeah, that. And suddenly the whole plan fell apart. I tried to salvage things, wrote her a letter, mailed it. No response. Reached out to mutual friends. Nothing. The worst part? Bree and I had to pretend everything was normal for a while. For family events, birthdays, mutual friends' weddings. Every time I saw her, I felt like I was living in a deleted scene from a sitcom. One of those cringe episodes that ends in complete disaster. And yet, I kind of deserved it. Because in hindsight, I should have known. I should have double-checked. Taken a beat, confirmed before making the biggest move of my life. You almost have to admire the audacity. Not hers, mine. Anyway, if you think that proposal was bad, wait till you hear who got dumped on their birthday. It was my birthday. Not just any birthday. It was the first one I'd be spending with my boyfriend. We'd been together 8 months at that point, and I had poured way too much emotional energy into planning the perfect evening. I got reservations at this cozy little Italian spot we'd both been eyeing for months. I bought a new dress, even got my nails done, which, if you know me, is a whole production. I was nervous in the excited way, you know? That kind of giddy where you check the mirror 10 times and keep refreshing your texts like a teenager. And then, 2 hours before dinner, I get a message. "Hey babe, gonna have to cancel tonight. The guys are throwing something last minute." Rain check? I stared at my phone for a full minute like it was a math equation. No happy birthday, no apology, just rain check. I texted back, "Wait, what? It's my birthday?" He replied, "Yeah, I know. We'll do something this weekend." I swear that was it. Not gonna lie. I sat there in my new dress, makeup done, candles lit, and just stared at the wall for a while. I didn't even cry. I was too stunned to cry. It was like my brain had to reboot from sheer disbelief. But that wasn't even the worst part. Later that night, I opened Instagram. I wasn't even trying to stalk him. I was doom scrolling, trying to distract myself. And there it was. A photo. A group shot. People I didn't recognize. Some I vaguely did. My boyfriend, front and center, grinning with his arm around a girl in a sparkly dress. Her birthday party. The caption, "Life upgrade." That's when everything unraveled. At first, I thought maybe it was just bad timing. Maybe he didn't mean it like that. Maybe, I don't know. He just captioned it poorly. But then I checked the comments. His friends hyping him up. Her tagging him with heart emojis. Someone else wrote, "You two are so cute." And the worst one? His response, "Best decision I've made this year." Yeah, that one hit like a punch in the throat. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't just hanging with the guys. He had dumped me not on my birthday, so he could hard launch a new relationship at someone else's party. I felt sick. Honestly, it wasn't even the cheating that crushed me. It was the casualness, the coldness, like I'd been quietly deleted from his life and replaced with an upgraded patch. I didn't confront him. I didn't text. I didn't rage post. I just disappeared, unfollowed him, blocked him, packed up the sweatshirt he left at my place and threw it in a donation bin the next morning. Not dramatic, just surgical. And yet, even that wasn't the end of it. Because 2 weeks later, he texted me again. "You mad at me or something?" That was the moment my soul left my body for a minute. I replied, "You dumped me on my birthday to take someone else to a party. What do you think?" He said, and I quote, "Didn't think you'd care that much." We were kind of fizzling anyway. Imagine being this confidently wrong. That right there, that was the last message he ever sent me. A couple months later, I heard through a mutual friend that he tried to slide back into her DMs too. Apparently, the upgrade dumped him after 3 weeks because, shocker, he was messaging other girls. You almost have to admire the audacity. And honestly, I'm glad it happened when it did. It was the universe yanking me out of something I didn't realize was already rotting from the inside. It hurt like hell at the time, sure. But now, I just think it's kind of poetic. He thought he upgraded. I upgraded myself. She left her laptop on my couch. That's it. That's the setup. We weren't even fighting. She was just over at my place for a movie night. Casual, low stakes. We ordered food, half-watched a thriller. She got up to take a call and left her MacBook right on the middle cushion. Then I came back from the kitchen, didn't see it in the dim light, and sat down. Crack. Instant regret. I froze like I'd just stepped on a landmine, pulled the laptop out from under me. Screen looked like a spiderweb. It wasn't a clean break either. We're talking full digital horror show. Flickering lines, weird color bursts, that crunchy screen trauma that makes your stomach drop. I apologized immediately, like, profusely. I told her I'd pay to replace it. No hesitation. I even Googled the exact model she had. Came out to $2,200 new. Painful, but fair. I offered her the full amount, told her I'd Venmo it the next day. She stared at the laptop like I had murdered her childhood pet. Then, and this is where the tone shifted, she said, "Actually, I've been meaning to upgrade anyway." The new model's $2,700, I blinked. "Wait, you want me to pay extra for an upgrade?" She nodded. "Well, yeah. I was going to buy the new one soon, and since you broke mine, I shouldn't have to pay out of pocket." I said, "But I didn't break a $2,700 laptop. I broke a $2,200 one. That's what I'm offering to replace." She hit me with the most passive-aggressive sigh I've ever heard. "It's just $500 more. Are you really going to nickel and dime me over that?" Okay, now I was the villain. For not buying her a luxury tech upgrade, this feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom. I reiterated, calmly, that I was happy to cover the value of what I broke, but not more. I even pulled up receipts for the exact model, showed her where I got the number. She told me I was being difficult. I told her I was being responsible. And that's when things went off the rails. because she stopped replying to my texts after that. And then 2 weeks later, I got served, like literally served, with actual court documents. She was suing me for damages. She claimed I broke her laptop through negligence and now owed her the current market replacement value, which she had conveniently calculated as, you guessed it, $2,700. You ever read legalese that makes your brain itch? Yeah, that was my next 2 hours. I considered just paying the extra $500 to make it go away, but something about the sheer audacity made me dig in. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was someone trying to turn a mistake into a money grab. So I lawyered up. Well, I consulted a lawyer friend who thankfully told me it wasn't as serious as it looked. Small claims court. Informal. Bring documentation, be respectful, and explain the facts. So I did. I showed up to court with everything. The price of her model, screenshots of our texts, even a time-stamped receipt showing she'd purchased the laptop over a year ago. I even printed a statement from Apple's trade-in page showing the depreciated value. She came in with a spreadsheet and a fake solemn expression, like she was auditioning for a crime drama. Her entire argument was basically, he broke it, so he owes me what I could buy now. Then came the breaking point. The judge, who looked like she'd already seen way too many petty cases that week, asked one question that unraveled the whole thing. Was the laptop on the floor or on the couch? My ex-friend hesitated. It was on the couch. Did you tell him it was there? No, but did you expect him to see it in the dark? I guess not. The judge sighed and leaned forward. Miss, by placing an expensive electronic device in an unusual location, especially on a shared surface like a couch cushion, you bear partial responsibility. In fact, I'd say it's a 50-50 split. She turned to me. Sir, you've offered more than that. That's admirable. But the court rules your responsibility is only 50% of the depreciated value. The final number? $150. She blinked. I think she actually glitched for a second. Her spreadsheet flopped a little on the desk, like even it was ashamed. After court, she tried to corner me in the hallway. I hope you're happy, I said. I didn't want this. I just wanted to make it right. You turned it into a hustle. She called me toxic, which, okay, projection much? Anyway, that was the last time we ever spoke. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone talk themselves into a corner, on the record, in front of a judge. We broke up after I caught her cheating. Honestly, I thought that would be the hard part. I mean, finding out your girlfriend's been sneaking around behind your back for months? That's already soul-crushing. But I kept it civil. No big screaming match. No public drama. I just said, we're done, packed a bag, and left. For context, we'd been living together for about a year. I'd helped her move into her place, she helped decorate mine. We were that couple. And somewhere in the middle of all that domestic bliss, she adopted this tiny Pomeranian named Gus. Absolute gremlin energy. Looked like a mop with anxiety. But here's the thing. She barely took care of him. Like, I'd be the one waking up early to walk him. I fed him, I trained him, I paid for his vet bills. She posted selfies with him on Instagram, but if he pooped in the hallway, suddenly my dog. So when we broke up, guess who she begged to take him? Yup, me. She said she was too emotionally unstable to care for him right now, and that Gus would be better off with someone consistent. I agreed, and I had the texts to prove it. Multiple, in fact. With timestamps, emojis, and her full government name. Fast forward 3 weeks. I'm finally adjusting. New apartment, new routine. Gus and I are vibing. Then I get a knock at the door. 2 uniformed officers, one with a clipboard. One with that face. You know the one. Like they're not mad, just deeply tired of whatever paperwork you're about to create for them. Are you my name? Yeah? We're following up on a report of a stolen animal. I blink. Stolen what? Your ex-partner reported that you took a dog without consent. I just stood there, holding Gus, who was wearing a little blue sweater with my name embroidered on it, because she never bought him anything. I did. I asked, do you want to see the texts? They nodded. I handed them my phone, scrolled straight to the part where she said, quote, please take Gus. I can't handle him right now. You're the only one he trusts emoji trail. And that's when the energy in the hallway changed, because one of the officers let out the tiniest sigh, like he already knew this was a dumpster fire, but now it smelled worse. They asked if they could take screenshots for their reports. I said yes. They thanked me. And then one of them asked the kicker, "Would you be willing to press charges for a false report?" That's when everything unraveled. Apparently, this wasn't the first time she tried something like this. She'd filed complaints before about a neighbor stealing her packages, about an old coworker stalking her, even claimed her ex before me hacked her phone. And the pattern? Every time a guy broke up with her, suddenly she was a victim of some crime. This was just the first time someone had receipts. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming. They went to her apartment that same afternoon, and she doubled down. Told them I manipulated her, gaslit her, coerced her into handing over the dog. The officer, who had already seen the cheerful, begging emoji she sent me, asked if she wanted to revise her statement. She did not. So, they arrested her. Yep. For filing a false police report. Misdemeanor, but still, actual handcuffs. I didn't find out until later, but apparently she flipped out, screamed about me ruining her life. Said Gus was all she had left. Funny considering she told me she couldn't handle him 2 weeks earlier. Imagine being this confidently wrong. She texted me from a new number a few days later. Said I set her up, that I manipulated the justice system, and that she hoped I rotted with that little mutt. Gus was curled up in my lap, licking peanut butter off a spoon when I read it. I blocked the number. Honestly, I wish that was the end of it, but she tried to post about me online, called me an abuser, said I stole her child. Like, girl, that child peed on your AirPods and you laughed. Luckily, no one bought it. A few mutuals reached out to warn me, but most people already knew her reputation. And once the court records were public, yeah, not much she could do to spin that. This whole thing taught me two things. 1, always get things in writing. 2, never date someone who treats their dog like a prop. Anyway, Gus is doing great. He's got 3 sweaters now, 2 beds, and an Instagram that I manage. He has more followers than I do. No idea how that happened. And me? I sleep very peacefully at night. Sometimes the best revenge is just having the screenshots ready. He's been my best friend for 10 years. 10 years of inside jokes, late-night diner runs, breakups, birthday parties, and helping each other move in and out of crappy apartments. My fiancé loved him. I loved him, platonically, like family. That's what made it so much worse. Let me rewind. I met Liam in college. We were both awkward freshmen with a mutual love of horror movies and sarcasm, and we just clicked. But it never went beyond friendship. Seriously, not even once. We both dated other people. We gave each other advice, set each other up, joked that we were like an old married couple, but purely in that don't ever touch me gremlin kind of way. Eventually, I met my fiancé, Mark. Mark was steady, thoughtful, the kind of guy who shows up early and remembers your coffee order. He met Liam about a month into our relationship, and to my surprise, they got along great. It wasn't just tolerance, they actually liked each other. Fantasy football, beer pong, dumb memes, you name it. I remember thinking how lucky I was. My best friend and my future husband getting along. Dream scenario. But that wasn't even the worst part. The wedding was 3 months away. Everything was going smoothly. Dress fittings, venue tours, cake tastings. You know, the usual whirlwind. Liam was going to be one of Mark's groomsmen, which felt perfect. Symbolic even. The blending of both sides of my life. Then, 2 nights before the rehearsal dinner, I got a text. 3:04 a.m. Liam, I can't let you marry the wrong man. I sat up in bed, half convinced I was dreaming. Blinked at my screen. Read it again. I can't let you marry the wrong man. Followed by a wall of text. It was everything. A full confession. He said he'd been in love with me for years. That he thought he could ignore it, push it down, be the bigger person. But watching me walk down the aisle with someone else, that apparently was too much. He said he hoped I'd wake up and realize we were meant to be. He ended the message with, I had to say it at least once, or I'd regret it forever. And just like that, he detonated a friendship that took a decade to build. I didn't respond. Not a single word. Because what was there to say? I was angry, but more than anything, I was heartbroken. He wasn't just my best friend. He was part of my chosen family. And now he'd turned our entire history into a question mark. And here's where it gets absurd. The next morning, he sent a follow-up text. Super casual, like nothing had happened. Hey, rehearsal still at 6? Let me know if you want me to pick up anything. As if he hadn't just confessed his undying love at 3 a.m., like some rejected soap opera villain. I didn't respond to that either. Instead, I called Mark, told him everything. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know you don't have to protect his feelings anymore, right?" And that's when everything unraveled. Because for so long, I'd tiptoed around Liam's moods. I'd chalked it up to, he's just like that. But in hindsight, there were red flags, little ones. Times he got weird when I talked about other guys. Or when he didn't show up to my engagement party, then claimed he was sick. Or the way he'd joke about Mark being too nice. This just confirmed all of it. I uninvited him from the wedding. Sent a short, blunt message. "I saw your texts. You won't be attending the wedding. Please don't contact me again." He didn't respond, and I haven't heard from him since. The day of the wedding, I had one small moment, backstage holding my bouquet, hands shaking, where I felt the weight of it. Not just the loss, but the betrayal. Like someone had lit a match and casually walked away from the house they helped you build. But then the music started, and Mark was waiting at the end of the aisle, and suddenly the air was lighter. I married the right man. Looking back, I think Liam convinced himself that timing was the only thing standing in our way, that all it would take was one dramatic confession, and I'd suddenly see him in a new light. But love doesn't work like that. Timing didn't fail him. He did. You almost have to admire the audacity. Burn a 10-year friendship 2 days before a wedding, and expect a fairy tale ending? This feels like something out of a deleted Grey's Anatomy plotline. Anyway, it's been months. I'm happily married. Liam's still gone, and honestly, I've made peace with it. Sometimes the people you trust most turn into plot twists you never saw coming. We were parked outside her house, windows fogged just slightly from the lingering warmth of the heater. One of those quiet, sleepy late nights where time stretches out, and everything feels like a movie. She was curled up sideways in the passenger seat, shoes off, legs folded. I remember her laughing at something dumb I said, the kind of laugh that feels like a reward. That's when I said it. I could see us lasting forever. Not in a proposal way, not some big dramatic declaration, just honest. Soft, a thought that slipped out because I felt safe saying it to her. She looked at me, really looked, smiled, leaned in and kissed my cheek. Then she whispered, "Good night," opened the door, and walked out of my car. That was the last time I ever saw her. And here's where it gets absurd. At first, I didn't panic. I figured maybe her phone died, or she fell asleep early, or got busy the next day. That kind of thing happens. We'd been seeing each other for almost 8 months. She wasn't the vanish into thin air type, or so I thought. So I texted her, "Hey, last night was nice. Let me know when you're free this week." Nothing. Tried again the next morning. "Hope your day's good. Wanna grab dinner Friday?" Still nothing. Then came the breaking point. Day 3, I checked her Instagram. Her profile still existed. Same bio, same highlights, but every photo of me, gone. She hadn't blocked me, just erased me, like I was a smudge on her camera lens. Okay, I thought, maybe she's going through something. Give her space. So I did. A week went by, then another. And suddenly the whole plan fell apart, because that was it. No explanation. No closure. No angry rant. No final fight. Just a soft kiss, a whispered goodnight, and complete digital annihilation. It felt like someone cut the power mid-sentence. You ever refresh a conversation so many times you memorize the last words? I remember thinking maybe she was in trouble. Maybe something happened. So I called one of her friends, casual tone, nothing dramatic. Her friend paused, then said, "Oh, you didn't hear?" I said, "Hear what?" She replied, "She said you two weren't serious. That it was just something fun. She's seeing someone else now. I think my brain short-circuited for a second. Not serious? She met my parents. She had a toothbrush at my place. We talked about getting a dog. Named the hypothetical dog. She helped me paint my living room. Not serious? Imagine being that confidently wrong about someone. I won't lie, it messed me up. It's one thing to get dumped. It's another thing to be deleted. Like I was a draft she never finished writing. And what stuck with me most wasn't the rejection. It was the way she smiled before she left. The calmness. Like it had already been decided days ago, and she just needed to find the quietest way out. That smile haunted me for months. Every time I replayed that night, the cheek kiss, the way she said goodnight like it meant something, I kept wondering, did she already know it was goodbye? And if she did, why act like it wasn't? This is where patience finally snapped. I ran into her once, almost a year later, at a coffee shop near my office. She was sitting by the window scrolling through her phone. Same hair, same coat, same calm smile. I froze. She didn't see me. I walked out. Didn't say a word. Didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I still had questions, because honestly, I'd rather hold on to that moment in the car, the soft goodbye, than ruin it with whatever messy, indifferent explanation she might have given. Sometimes the best closure is just realizing they weren't who you thought they were. You almost have to admire the efficiency. She ghosted me while sitting in my car. With eye contact. It was a live-action Irish goodbye. This feels like a deleted scene from a psychological thriller. Anyway, it's been 2 years. I stopped checking her socials. I stopped rehearsing fake conversations in the shower. And somewhere along the way, I realized something kind of wild. I'm okay. She gave me a clean exit, even if it didn't feel like one at the time. No lingering texts, no messy, maybe some days, just a full system reset. And now, I've moved on. But if I ever see someone smile, kiss my cheek, and say goodnight before stepping out of a car, you better believe I'm driving off immediately. That's enough Reddit chaos for today. If you've made it this far, you deserve peace and quiet, or at least a cup of tea and a hug from someone who'd never sue you over furniture. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, the next unhinged post might just be about you.